the Neo-Freudians would find a valuable spokesman for the cultural school in another military psychiatrist, Major General George Brock Chisholm, who was cited as an influence in the authoritarian personality. Chisholm would call for a revolution in child upbringing towards the abandonment of traditional culture, the rejection of parental authority, and the end of any restrictions or taboos surrounding child sexuality. Instead, Chisholm believed that children should be introduced to world values and transformed into world citizens. Chisholm believed that comprehensive sex education was essential to the process of globalizing children, arguing that children should be taught the details of sex beginning at age 3. In February of 1946, Harry Stack Sullivan's journal Psychiatry would feature a series of lectures given by Brock Chisholm in October of 1945, only months after the end of World War II, one of which was delivered to a crowd at the U.S. Department of the Interior building, featuring several high-ranking members of the Truman administration. The lectures and article were part of a coordinated lobbying campaign for federal mental health policy along Neo-Freudian lines. In his 2 lectures, Chisholm identifies the sickness which threatens the existence of humanity, morality, and argues for the necessity of massive federal programs using psychiatry and psychology to modify the behavior of the masses and transform Americans into world citizens.
We may not change nature, but surely its expression in behavior patterns can be modified very extensively. What basic psychological distortion can be found in every civilization of which we know anything? There is just one. The only lowest common denominator of all civilizations and the only psychological force capable of producing these perversions is morality, the concept of right and wrong. Good and evil with which to keep children under control, with which to prevent free thinking, with which to impose local and familial national loyalties, and with which to blind children to their glorious intellectual heritage.
The reinterpretation and eventually eradication of the concept of right and wrong, which has been the basis of child training, the substitution of intelligent and rational thinking for faith in the certainties of the old people, these are the belated objectives of practically all effective psychotherapy. Would they not be legitimate objectives of original education? If the race is to be freed from its crippling burden of good and evil, it must be psychiatrists who take the original responsibility. This is a challenge which must be met. It is therefore necessary that, for so long as it may take to change the bringing up of children in enough of the world, our close watch on each other and everyone in the world should not be relaxed for a moment. The people who definitely do not want to fight any more wars must promise annihilation to any nation which starts to fight and must be prepared immediately and ruthlessly to carry out that promise without parley or negotiation. The most important thing in the world today is the bringing up of children. Can such a program of re-education or a new kind of education be charted? I would not presume to go so far except to suggest that psychology and sociology and simple psychopathology, the sciences of living, should be made available to all the people by being taught to children in primary and secondary schools. Only so, I think, can we help our children to carry their responsibilities as world citizens, as we have not been able to do. With the other human sciences, psychiatry must now decide what is to be the immediate future of the human race. No one else can. And this is the prime responsibility of psychiatry. When now, we also have to recognize that neuroses propagate themselves and affect whole families. Should attempts be made by the profession to induce governments to institute compulsory treatment for the neuroses as for other infectious diseases? It has long been generally accepted that parents have a perfect right to impose any points of view, any lies or fears, superstitions, prejudices, hates, or faiths on their defenseless children. It is, however, only relatively recently that it has become a matter of certain knowledge that these things cause neuroses, behavior disorders, emotional disabilities, and failure to develop to a state of emotional maturity which fits one to be a citizen of democracy. Surely the training of children in homes and schools should be of at least as great public concern as are their vaccination or toxolding for their own protection and that of other people. Emotional and social health is at least as important as physical health. Neither type of health can be held to be exclusively the concern of the parents, for it has much importance for the community.
Let us be our own authority. We know far more than any of our ancestors. There is no room for authoritarian dogma in the field of human relations. Let us discard the bromides which have kept us drugged, obedient to the old people and afraid of their displeasure.
There is something to be said for taking charge of our own destiny, for gently putting aside the mistaken old ways of our elders, if that is possible. If it cannot be done gently, it may have to be done roughly or even violently. That has happened before.
On July 3, 1946, after a year of such lobbying by the so-called mental health movement, President Truman would sign into law the National Mental Health Act, authorizing the creation of the National Institute of Mental Health.